Welcome into episode number 29. We have had quite the week. Our government is shut down. We're not, though. We're here. We're still doing our thing. And we had the UN meetings last week. Benjamin Netanyahu ended up meeting with a bunch of content creators afterwards, but that's not the conversation we're having today, though we'll get to that. Today, we had decades-long successful real estate entrepreneur, coach, and consultant, Tom Ferry. Tom Ferry is a household name, I venture to say, in the real estate world. I don't know anyone who doesn't know him from the lending to the professional side, but he has a keen insight as to how we should view billionaires, how we should view housing affordability, and we got into some discussion, even debate, around affordability for those getting into this housing market, the person getting the college degree, the young Gen Z. How do they get into a home? We brought up some of these questions, as well as talking about some strategies, flexible income, trades, AI, even multi-person home purchases. So we get into all that and more in this interview with Mr. Tom Ferry. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the number one real estate coach on the planet, good friend, known him for a bit now, but I want to just intro you. Tom, how are you doing, friend? Tell us about yourself.
I'm doing great, Zach, and congratulations on your show and your success, your continued success. I mean, I've been blessed to watch you kind of go from here to here, and I think you're about to take another big leap. So backstory, living in Southern California, mom was a Mouseketeer, dad was sweeping a broom on Carnation, so kind of grew up in a, interesting little, very Disney-esque household. Became a Southern California punk rocker, got kicked out of 5 high schools, graduated with a GED, did not know what to do with my life, but always knew that I was passionate about 2 things, like people and real estate. So I ventured into a family business where we helped real estate professionals and by proxy helped consumers buy houses starting back in like 1989, worked through several recessions, a global financial crisis, most recently a pandemic, and of course following that a massive inflation run, in the U.S. and around the world. So today, I'm the CEO of a company called Ferry International. What we do is we help real estate professionals sell more houses, and that's what we focus on every single day. So that's kind of the snapshot. Entrepreneur, crazy, own a wine business, do all kinds of other fun things. But you know me, man. I'm really passionate about one thing: real estate and people.
So let's talk about that. There's a group of people, specifically Gen Z generation, feels that opportunity, whether or not they love real estate, a lot of people get into real estate. Why? Oh, I love homes so much. I love seeing housing. Yeah. There's a lot of people that may love housing and love the opportunity that it brings, but they can't get in on it. So let's talk a little bit about that, about the Gen Z generation getting into housing. What are they running up against?
So they're running up against the same exact thing that people have been running up against in the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, the 2010s, and even in the 2020s. So the problem that this generation faces is not a new problem, right? It's been the same problem forever. I was with my Uncle Frank, who was the last survivor of the 101st Airborne Division, World War II, D-Day, paratroop in, fought 7 major battles, came home, and decided, hey, I'm going to marry this gal, Addie, who's a sweetheart, and I'm going to buy my first house. And I remember saying to him, because I was in his home, like he died now almost 18 months ago. And when I was in his home, it was like the day before he turned 100. And you know what he said to me, Zach? He said, I bought this house, and it was like $13,000. And he said, I couldn't believe that I was buying a $13,000 house. And, of course, now he's the day before he turns 100. So he's like, hey, Tommy, how much is my home worth? I'm like, well, Zillow's prices are always wrong, but it looks like just your lot value would be worth around $1.6 million. But most people, Frank, would tear this down because look around you. Look at all these young people that are moving into your neighborhood. So I say that to you, not to diss anybody who's like really stressing and would like to buy a house. I'll tell you the same advice that I tell my sons, all of their friends. I've got a 26 and 24-year-old. You know my boys. It is a couple things. One, can you house hack? Can you go in, as one of my older son Michael's buddies, they just did this a couple of weeks ago, 4 guys went in and bought a duplex together. So the power of the 4 made it more reasonable. Now you might say, I'm not sure if I want to do that, but then I think to my lovely wife of 33 years at the end of this month, when she bought her first house, she bought it with a guy named Steve Rowe. Rowe had an electrical business, and she was a real estate agent, and both of them were starting their careers. And they've been pals forever, kind of neighbors across the street, grew up. You know what they did? They bought a house together in Anaheim, California. So we know that that's an option. It might be a tricky option. It might mean, Zach, that you need to educate people on what it means to build an LLC, to put it inside an LLC as an example. So each person owns a unit and they've got a buy-sell agreement, but that's an option. But I think the thing that is the hard truth that nobody wants to talk about, the vast majority of people want to live in the best cities and the best places across the country. And you know what? All those places are more expensive. So what I tell people is, why don't you do what I did? I was living in Newport Beach, California at my parents' house, but when I was trying to buy my first house, which I bought at 19, I couldn't afford to live in the area that I wanted to live in. I wanted to live along the coast. That's the dream. I wanted to live in the best location. Guess what I did? I bought a house like 35 minutes away that was like a 1-bedroom with a loft, so technically 2 bedrooms, 2 bath, and I got a roommate who helped me cover the cost. And that's how I bought my first house. And I owned that house for, 4 or 5 years, and then sold that house and bought my next house. And it was a little bit closer to where I wanted to be. And it wasn't until my 4th home, right? So let's call that over, almost a decade. Let's call it like 12, 13 years that I finally got to the location I wanted to be. Now, there's 2 things that you have to have in mind if you're going to follow that strategy. One is you're going to be driving a lot to get back and forth to work. And if you're in a place where you can do trains like New York City, et cetera, then maybe that's a great option. But I knew then that if I bought that house, I knew over time it would go up in value. I didn't have a large enough ego, and I didn't have a family, so got to keep it real. But I don't know how many Gen Z's got a family, but I knew I can get a roommate, I can offset some of the costs, and I had a little pride of ownership. I fixed this little thing up, and then I sold it a couple years later, and I went from $155,000 condo to the next one was $380,000, using some of the equity that I gained, a little more money that I saved, and then I did it again. And then, I finally got the house in the neighborhood I wanted to be. It took me 12 years. But what I would say to somebody that is, 27, 32, like that's a doable plan. The challenge is you got to get over your ego. Your ego is what gets in the way. My ego says, but I want to live in downtown Boston.
Let me push back on that a little bit, though.
Please.
There's also the wage problem. I wouldn't say it's just ego. It's also equity. People don't make... I'll put Delaware as an example.
Yeah.
Like Delaware, our median home price is $346, $356. We're still on the lower side of the bracket. We're not the most affordable top 10, 15 states, though.
No. It's expensive if your income isn't where you want it to be.
But that's the thing. So for example, right now, the person graduating college and going into the workforce, there's a 9.6% unemployment rate of somebody who has a bachelor's degree right now. A 50.2% underemployment. They're working jobs that they are worth more than. And those are the highest numbers we've ever seen.
Right.
And that very person who wants to follow that 12-year goal or 13-year goal, like in Delaware, for example, if they want to go into an area where they're driving 30, 40 minutes to work, and they're not 20 minutes worth or close to a grocery store, and they're out in the boonies, they're still paying $320. They're still paying $290. And they have to make $85,000, $90,000, $100,000 just to scrape by. When you and I both know, when I got into this game, I was getting some bozos into housing. I was getting anybody who had a full-time job and a 620 credit score into a home. Is that world? Do you think that world's coming back?
I know it is. I would bet everything I own and my future earnings, knowing that it's coming back. Interest rates will come down. What's not going to come down ever is affordability. It's never going to happen. So the myth that someday we might have more affordable housing. Here's the only way. So there was 3 debates we need to discuss here. One is affordability, one is college, and the other one is how are you making your income and what are you going to do about it? So I think we need to like hammer out all 3.
Okay, let's start with affordability.
Okay, so affordability. So we have pessimistic, like middle of the road, and most optimistic home price appreciation predictions for the next 4 years. So I don't want to screw this up because I'm looking at all the data. And for my friend that's listening, I will share with Zach all these slides so you can take a look at the data, the sources of data. Because when people talk numbers, if they don't back it up with like where it came from, like most people call BS. So, and you should, I do, and you should too.
Amen.
So the most pessimistic say we will have a 6.7% home price appreciation across the country in the U.S. over the next 4 years. The largest group of economists, right, the sort of middle of the roaders, if you will, the ones with the most consensus, they said over the next 4 years we'll have a 17.6% increase in home price appreciation. And let's call it the most optimistic, and this is going to make some people throw up in their mouth, because if you think it's affordable now, 27.4% is the expectation. Now, I shared this with some friends, and, you know, I run with a crazy posse of people that happen to be real estate investors. And you know what they all said? So what you're saying is we should buy everything we can. Now, on one hand, I say, yes, you should. On the other hand, I think, my goodness, what are we going to do in this country with 22 million SFRs owned by these large institutions? And you know the numbers, Zach. It's actually 90% of the people that own all those SFRs are owned by people like you and I. Right.
Correct. So and when you're saying SFRs, for someone listening,
single family residences,
single family rental, and yes, when you look at the statistics, 1 out of 4, it's 27% are investors, and of those percentage of investors, about 4/5 are mom and pops.
Bingo. So there is, by the way, some discussion, and this is maybe there's a gentleman I can get you on the show who is, my goodness, he consults for Bank of America. He was one of the early board members of Lending Tree. Today he sits as the CEO of a company called Williston Financial. It's a large title company and closing services business. Very, very bright guy, one of my mentors. He and I were in this conversation, my goodness, back in like 2021 when we were complaining that home price appreciation was out of control and things weren't affordable. He was working with some senators to say, what we need to do is we need to go to all those mom and pops who are sitting on these properties that they've owned for a decade or more. They've already written off, if you will, the appreciation. So now it's just an asset only for potentially cash flow and long-term gain. And if we gave them a break and they didn't have to sell to 1031 exchange to not pay taxes, and said, if you sell in this time period, we could get a nice flood of properties on the market potentially that would be more affordable. But I can't count on that. So affordability is always going to be a factor. If I was the president of the United States tomorrow, this would be my plan. I would take up all the BLM, aka the Bureau of Land Management, right? All the available land that the federal government is sitting on, including all the buildings that they own where they're never going to have their employees come back. And I would convert all of that. I'm not sure if that was on my end or your end, but
I have no clue who that was, Tom.
Okay, I think that was somebody on my team, so that was fine. But I would ask them to convert all of that and make that all available for low-cost housing, not low-cost rental, low-cost acquisition. Number 2 thing I would do is I would go to the banks and I would say, let's create a 40-year term loan versus a 30-year. And I would try and incentivize all those first-time buyers, right, with better, more favorable rates so they can get in early and ideally not own that house for 40 years, but do the move-up plan like I just talked about. The number 3 thing is I would give all of the Lennar, D.R. Horton, etc. You can't mandate these publicly traded companies, but you can encourage them and say, hey, we're going to give you the land. We're going to incentivize you to only build houses at X or below. And so, you know, to me, like, it's got to be that kind of stuff. And I don't know today, in today's day and age, if that's realistic, but that seems to be the obvious thing, right? So affordability, that's my input. Can we debate college for a second?
Please.
Okay, I didn't go to college. I went for 5 months. You know, I got kicked out of 4 high schools and graduated with a GED. So, like, it wasn't like, I think I said 5 earlier. I apologize, but it's 4 high schools, and then my 5th one I got out with a GED. I have a lot of friends that went to college, and you know who they called after their 4-year degree ended? So that would have been, call it 1993, when we were in a recession. They all called me and said, hey, Ferry, can I come to work for you guys? Because, first of all, most of the degrees today, if I was the president of the United States tomorrow, Zach, you know what I would do? I would open up institutions for purely, like, we need manpower. I don't mean that as a sexist way. Like, we need bodies to do these functions. Let's get back to trade schools. If I was watching this show right now and I was like, I went to college, I got this degree, and you and I both know the odds are that degree is absolutely bullshit. And if you put a bunch of loans on it, I feel bad for you, right? But what I know is we need plumbers in the United States. And plumbers make $250,000 to $350,000 a year, and the average age of a plumber right now is pushing 70, and they don't have a retirement strategy. They need someone to buy their business or join their business and become an apprentice. And I know a lot of people are going to say, but man, I went to college. I don't want some blue-collar job. then don't complain about your income. Go where the money is. Like, that's the game. You have to look around and say, what are the industries that are constantly looking for more talent because they're willing to pay good money, but their jobs that the average person went to college would just, ugh.
Well, I would say that that's a valid argument, because I made it's like my first like viral-ish post in 2018 where I said I think a relationship is more important than a degree. It can get you more 100%. Doors open than a degree 100%. Ever could. There's been a lot of people that have been tricked, though, I feel, for the past 8 to 10 years. Learn to code, learn tech, learn graphic design, learn everything AI can do. And to your point, the trade, even real estate, there's a larger wall that would have to be climbed by any kind of AI optimization that would ever get those people out of the game.
Yeah.
So
okay, ready? Who cares? Pivot. Learn something new. No one cares. Sorry. Hey, you were told to get a comp sci degree, and now AI. But let's be really clear. I've been following AI since 2016. I'm a part of a group called Abundance 360. We've been talking about this stuff forever. In 2019, we sat in a room, Tony Robbins, like hologrammed in, Zach. And we debated for 90 minutes. What are we going to do when Elon and others finally figure out the self-driving truck, and 7 million truck drivers are suddenly displaced? And the argument was, well, maybe the U.S. government should like cut aside like $2,000 a month for every one of them. And I'm like, the first one going, hello, excuse me. No, what they need is to learn a new trade. But that was 2019. How close are we right now to self-driving trucks removing humans? I think we're a decade away if we're lucky. How far is AI really, really away from eliminating the need for a great graphic designer, for a great computer programmer? Yeah, you can look at the Mag 7 and they're all saying, we stopped hiring. Well, all those companies are super bloated. They have way too many employees and they're publicly traded. So if they do a riff, you know what? Their stock goes up. So it was an incentive. They all used the phrase AI, but then look at what Zucks did the last year and a half before he finally put the freeze on it. He was going out and just giving people $1 million bonuses to leave their company and come join him. So I know I'm not answering the question, but I don't buy into, and I'm an investor in a lot of it. I'm an investor in X.AI. I'm an investor in Perplexity. Like, I love AI, but we're in like inning 1. So I don't want to hear any BS from people saying I can't get a job because AI is coming to get me. Shut up.
Well, that's a part of it, though. We can't ignore that that's a part of the job freeze right now, because the job market stinks. The job market for anyone looking to apply, they're having to put in hundreds of applications. They're not hearing back. Now we have AI hiring people.
For sure.
AI hiring reps.
Scrubbing their resumes, right? Trying to determine, because that's
hosting
a time
hosting
saver.
The interview.
Even better. God, I love it. I want to invest in that company.
I hate it. I see that as we're pushing farther and farther away from the need for the general worker, I guess. There's always going to be room for someone who wants to be the guy or the girl in their given industry.
Sure.
I just remember selling the home to the guy that made Subway sandwiches, though.
Yeah. Very different time, very different cost of money. And Zach, are you a decade in, or are you like, I know
almost a decade in. Don't age me too much yet. It's 9 years.
Okay, so I'm 36 years in, right? Yeah. So I can remember, buying my first house for $155,000 and thinking that was an exorbitant amount of money. The second home I bought for $380,000. My son and I were driving in Newport Beach, and he's like, "Hey, didn't you guys just live in this community?" I'm like, "Yeah, let me show you." I go, "Oh, let's look. Oh, it's now worth $2.4 million." And it was like a split-level 3-bedroom condo.
So do you see that same level of growth? So somebody gets in on a home today that's $350,000. You think that same home's $700,000 20 years from now?
I think it's worth way more.
Way more. Got it.
Way
Just
more.
because of the lack of dirt, lack of
20
housing.
years? I mean, and how many people are in the United States? Now, I will show you. I'm gonna share a graph with you guys, and I think this is not trying to be controversial in any way, shape, or form, but I needed to have more kids. You need to have more kids immediately.
The replacement rate's awful.
It is.
That's and while you're pulling
yeah.
that stat up,
yeah,
That's another huge piece of this.
I know.
The Gen Z generation isn't not just getting housing. They're not getting married. They're not having children.
Yeah.
They're not having faith that any of this shifts in any soon time frame before they're full grown adults.
Yeah. Not all of them, because I do talk to a lot of Gen Zs. Not all of them, but yes.
Not all. 100%.
Yeah.
All, and not all should.
Yeah. And the more noise there is, it's usually going to be on the negative side, not the positive side. I mean, that's the news business, right? Get attention, get clicks. So I think a lot of them are extremely optimistic. A lot of them took the path of hey, you know what? I want to go into consulting. So I'm going to understand finance. I'm going to have these skills that AI could replace it one day, but not yet at the top 150 consulting firms around the world. And those kids are getting jobs. My buddy's the co-chair of Houlihan Lokey. They bring in every single year a ton of new recruits. If you wanted to become an accountant, my goodness, you would think one thing that could be easily replaced by AI. You know my son Michael, his girlfriend of 2 years is now in year 3 of Deloitte. And you know what she's doing? Crunching numbers twice a year for a privately held firm. Those jobs still exist. I think the bigger issue with college is people go into college. Look, it's adult education. It's, hang out and party with your buddies. If you don't take it seriously, you can't complain coming out of there and saying there's no jobs. So let's assume you're out of college. What are you going to do now? Your income, always and forever, is in direct correlation to the value that you deliver to the market. So if you're not delivering value to the market, or you are one of 1,000 that can deliver the same value, you can't expect to get a premium income. You've got to do something better. You've got to do something unique. You have to have a different set of skills. I'll tell you one skill that I'm obsessed over for all young people: communication. Yeah. Become a better communicator. I mean, Zach, look no further than you, my friend, right? If you become a better communicator, and really what I mean by that is a better listener. Right? I talk about a strategy called listen, don't relate. The world doesn't need another topper. Everyone has a friend right now listening. The friend that says, oh, Zach, I was fishing this weekend. Man, I caught a 2-pound bass. And your buddy goes, you caught a 2-pound bass? A month ago, I caught a 3-pound bass. And you think it's like a old school rapport. We both like fishing. No, but I was in the middle of telling a story, and you just went over the top to make your story better than mine. That's a break in rapport. And that's something I watch young people do every single day. Constantly trying to one-up each other, whether it's on positive or negative, rather than just celebrating and saying, congratulations on that. Tell me more about it. What kind of baits did you use? What time of day was it? Like, actually be curious about people. That's a communication skill that a lot of young people have missed. And I get it. I can blame COVID, the lockdown, the anti-socialization. I can blame video games and video games. And by the way, I played Madden last night. I'm 0 for 4 while my son's in town. Like, it's time for me to be with him.
Your son is one of the best video game players I've ever
So you understand,
Steven's one of the best video game players I've ever been.
I have a tremendous unfair advantage. But I watch him as he moved to Hoboken, New Jersey to start his career in real estate. He stays socially connected with all of his buddies that are all over the world, right, through video games. They're all talking and chatting, yada, yada, yada. But again, I would challenge it. So if I'm a Gen Z today, I need to be reading more. I need to be studying more. I need to be extremely careful about who I associate with. When I was young, Zach, you probably heard me say this story before, and I was struggling as I was becoming a young, I don't know if I'd call it professional, but 19, 20, 21. And I got into sales, as you know, and I started making more and more money and, thought I was kind of, hot stuff. My father pulled me aside one time and he said, one of the most important things you're going to realize is you really do become like the 4 or 5 people you spend the most time with. And he said, I would challenge you to write down a list of the people you spend your time with. And he goes, this is going to sound horrible. Categorize them negative, neutral, or positive. And you know what? 4 of the people I was spending all my time with were just constantly complaining about everything. And we all have that friend who, every relationship, this person's horrible, they're mean to me. And you're like, wait a minute, you keep dating the same person over and over again in a different body. Maybe you need to change. Like, and I didn't kill all those people, metaphorically, right? I just spent a little less time with them. And I started to find people that were trying to get on an upward trajectory. And that may sound like I'm some old guy because I'm 55 years old. But you know what I'm going to tell you? man, you spend time with a bunch of people that all they do is bitch, moan, whine, complain. You're going to do the same. You got to get proactive about your life. You got to take responsibility, like 100% responsibility for everything going on. You don't like your income? Get a second job. You don't like that? I don't know, follow Gary Vee and go garage sale and buy stuff cheap, put it on eBay and sell it for a profit. You can make $1,000 a month doing that. $1,000 a month could be the difference between you getting a house or not getting a house. Or hey, how about just saving the money and putting yourself in a position where over time you can put more money down? There's so many other ways for people to create extra income. But I just, and Zach, you know I love you, man. Like I don't want to come across as negative, so I hope I'm not.
No, we have differing standpoints on this, and I want to crack through those more.
Yeah. All right, so talk to me.
Well, the key point I'm pulling out of this is two. One is the people that are around you, whether they're the people that are surrounding you in your social life, but also the people that surround you in terms of being able to buy a home, your spouse, other friends, other professionals, other family members you can buy with.
Right.
But I'm also hearing, and this is where maybe I'm too optimistic about what the future could be.
Sure.
But it sounds like we have moved into a space to where if you want to survive in this world, you cannot be in a fixed income scenario. You have to be flexible to your value in some way, shape, or form. If you just go get a standard income job, I hate to say it, like there's no chance.
No. I think you're spot on. And I think earlier when I said you got to get your ego out of the way, like every house that I bought, I had to sacrifice before I bought it.
But what's the sacrifice? Let's define that. Because if I'm making, let's call it 70 grand a year, I'm not married, I got a dog, I keep my expenses low, I just have a mattress in my bedroom, I don't even have a stand on, I'm just a guy. Like, I feel the way I was raised, I would be in a winning scenario making 70 grand, keeping my debt low and doing my thing. But today that doesn't seem or feel like winning. And I think the person hearing you say, oh, put your ego away, is going to be like, what the F, Mr. Ferry? I'm doing what I can. What more can I do? So are you telling that person either side hustle, grind harder to get to a higher position where they're at, or is just altogether you might have to shift to, like you said, a trade?
D, all the above. Zach, there's never one answer. There's anyone that tells you there's one answer is selling you something, right? There's never one answer. It could be a side hustle. But the hard truth is most people are unwilling to look in the mirror and say, you put yourself in this situation. Now, what are you going to do to get yourself out of it? And if every one of your listeners would just have a really honest conversation with themselves and just be mindful of all the confirmation biases of, well, my parents did this to me. And, if I would have gone to that school and I can't believe that this person fired me and therefore, I'll never. You're done before you start. It always starts first with self-awareness, right? Who do I have to be every single day inside the office where suddenly the manager says, gosh, you know what, Zach? You're going into management. And just like that, you get bumped up, right? Who do you have to be to have that happen? Well, I know it.
But now I'm making $85,000 a year and I still can't buy a house.
Cool. Okay, so after you got that bump up, and you're now at 85, then the next question is, all right, so what do you do on the weekends to make money? You got to sacrifice.
So, but
you have to sacrifice.
That's where I get back to, I don't think everyone needs to be me. I think the world would be a real scary place if everyone was running around like me.
I agree.
It'd be terrifying. If just a bunch of me and Toms are running around.
Oh, man.
It's a weird world.
Okay, but are you then making the argument that that it is preordained that there will be the rich and the rest?
To an extent, yes, and we have a lot of history to show that. But I'm more saying that at a certain time and place, I'm not going to say when in the map, but it's been recent, that a fixed income lifestyle where the mom or the dad or somebody could stay home if they wanted to is gone. The world where you can have two kids and not have to worry about the financial side of that is dissipating. And that there's a lot of people that are doing what's quote unquote right and not seeing the dividends from it. I just argue there is that person out there, and it's a growing sect of people that want to just be able to make their $80K a year and not grind and spend their weekends going to a park and go climb the mountain and go see the other country.
Yes.
And I think what was the word that was a dink? A dink was like the financial free ticket to this country if you just had dual income, no kids. And now being a dink is just like, you don't have a house and you don't have kids. You just don't have anything to have now. I may sound more pessimistic about it, but I do feel that way, that in the last 3-4 years, we're in a completely different world in terms of affordability. Completely different world.
So college is not the determining factor.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, you have to take. I mean, if we have a shortage.
I got you. You got thrown out of high school. Last time I was on a college campus, I was being walked out by security. Yeah.
So college, unless you're going to get a trade, right? Hey, I'm going to become an electrical engineer, right? Like you're gonna have income for a long time, and you're probably gonna end up building a business, and you're probably gonna end up hiring more people, and they're gonna look at you and say, "How do I become like you?" Because now you have the nice big house, right? We can debate that all day long, but I think we're kind of aligned, right? Like there's paths for college that make sense, and there's paths that don't. When it comes to making money, I mean,
it just seems for me, Tom, and maybe it's just because. Go ahead.
No, I don't believe in a world where just because you do okay work and you make $75,000 or $85,000 a year that you should just automatically get a house. It doesn't work that way. That's not the way the world works. But it used to work
that way. That's where I have for me and our position within real estate. We saw in the last 3 years firsthand, front row seat, the inflation that started ripping through the entire economy. Yes. We saw it really start in housing.
No doubt. Transportation,
I have documentation
of
people that I can go back to, like Craig, who's a DSU dispatcher, first job out of college, 38 grand a year, but didn't have a dumb car. Got his grandpa's truck and was running it till it died. But just because he made that move, he could get a house.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm being a bit altruistic by saying everybody gets a house, but damn, if you put in the work and do what are seen as the right financial steps, and then you get to X step and you realize, oh, I'm still 3 steps away. And then you go those 3 steps and you're like, oh, I'm still 4 steps away. And then you go, it feels a little bit more like a carrot on a stick to, I think, a lot of the younger generation who are being told, go get another side hustle.
Yeah. So what I would tell them is, welcome to life. That happens to me, I don't know, every 5 to 7 years, where I wake up and say, everything I poured myself into, is this all there is? This is what I wanted. I thought it was going to be like that. It turned out like this. And you know what you do? You pivot and adjust again. That's what you do. When you have a little more self-awareness and you realize, I'm going to go dig myself into this and I'm going to do whatever Zach tells me to do for the next decade, and it doesn't work out, you don't blame everyone else. You say, okay, what did I learn? Now let's go left.
Okay, no, that's right. So the self-awareness is first off everything. Getting past the childhood traumas. Why do I react this way? Why are my emotions, putting me in this position in life? Absolutely. But what happens when you get to that point? I'll shout myself out. What happens when you get to the point where you're like, is making money just it? Is that it? Is this it? Because I think there's a lot, especially in the younger generations, who have just been inundated with media and information and be mad about this and be angry about that. That just are like, I want to go get a flip phone and live in the woods on my 200 square foot home and never talk to another person about money ever again.
Yeah.
And I believe that lifestyle, at the least, of if you wanted to sacrifice your 40 hours and burn it with a company, you could make your 60, 80K, and then you could just chill with the wife, chill with the husband, chill with the kid, play video games, go play football, go do that rec league, go travel. And it seems like that lifestyle is gone unless you side hustle entrepreneur yourself.
Or you move to some place that is far more affordable.
Get down to Mississippi something.
Right. And I think that's the hard part. Like
probably a lot of beautiful walks in Mississippi. I don't know.
There is. Mississippi is actually quite gorgeous, but the average sales price there is quite low as well. And that's part of it because it's hard to get jobs there that are meaningful, et cetera. So I did a little quick search. Ready? The question I just asked was, is this the first time in history where home affordability has been a factor? Well, the 1930s Great Depression, homeowners, that was a factor. The Federal Reserve put in the Housing Administration. That's when FHA was created. 1940s and 50s, right? It was absolutely the same there. 1960s because of urban migration. 1970s, 80s because of stagflation and mortgage rates at 18. The 2000s because of subprime lending made it too easy. Then Dodd-Frank was implemented, making it much more stringent. So,
but with all of those stats, you can look at a different. If we looked at a different stat of homeowner by 30, homeowners under 30, that
we're now at 38 for the first-time home buyer.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, it keeps going up. But if you look through those ages, though tough was possible because 30 years and under, the median American owned a home. More than 1 out of 2 owned a home. That number today is 12%.
I know.
Did we just get 38% more lazy?
No, but. No, I don't think laziness is the only factor. There's never one answer. I'm sure you've done this before with your listeners. And by the way, I really, I always have high appreciation for you. It's even higher now in this conversation. So I'm really proud of you, man. I think every one of your listeners should reach out to a bank and separately a mortgage professional and walk in and say, I would like to make $70,000 a year and sometime buy a house. What do I need to do? And actually sit down with a professional who has, ideally their bank, wherever they bank, right? But that's why I say do a mortgage professional, because the mortgage professional is going to probably have access to more creative financing solutions where the bank might just say, this is our box, and if your FICO score is here, we'll take care of you, especially if you're one of our banking clients. I would meet with both. And what that's going to do for you is you're going to go from all these sort of potential false fallacies in your mind about ever one day owning a home. And at least those two people will say, well, if your income to debt ratio is this, you can buy a house. So let's remove the debt first. Your credit is horrible, right? Maybe you should have made that payment instead of blowing off that doctor, and that's been a mark. Let's go talk to somebody to fix your credit. And then they're both going to say, look, you're going to need this much money down unless you have this kind of crazy incentive program. And at least now you go from speculation, conversation to data.
Data's the baseline of where everyone should end.
Yeah.
And this is probably where we'll have to leave the conversation because ultimately it's a giant rock that nobody can move.
No doubt.
But I believe in data speaking wise that there are just more people who are getting to the point where, and by the way, perfect suggestion, get with a professional to know what does my credit need to be, what does my income need to be, what debts need to get paid off. But there'll probably be more so than not people that get to that conversation like, oh, I got to make what? I got to save this? What used to be, I remember my first house, I bought for a similar price point in Delaware, about $155, which when you bought yours, different area.
In 1989.
In California, very different. Delaware, $155. The monthly expenses that my wife and I had, I know you got a jet soon, so we'll wrap this up. As monthly expenses just to get by were very low. We kept it very low because we wanted to survive while we're getting this real estate thing off the ground. Yeah. It was about $2,200, $2,280, I believe was the actual number. And I remember every single month thinking about that number, $2,280, $2,280, $2,280. If we can get to that number, then we're going to be able to survive that month. That's lower than the median rent today.
I know. How much money did you put down on a $155,000 house when you got started?
We used the VA loan, so I did not put anything down.
Okay, so that's why your payment was so high. Because
no, that wasn't my payment. That was my all in to cover my household. My payment was $980.
Okay. Thank you.
No. My payment was $980. That was with the bills. That was with the phones. That was with the car payments. That was everything all in one box.
Yep.
And that was scraping. That was 2 cars that hardly ran.
Right.
That was the phone bill at the lowest amount. Yeah. Everything was at its lowest. And you know the story. I was $86,000 in debt, and I had to pull myself out of that. My wife and I out of that. But that journey, that hero's arc financially just doesn't seem as glimmering today. Yeah. And it sucks for me as somebody who's gotten to a point where I feel I can teach people to walk the steps I took.
Yeah.
Or climb the rungs on the ladder I took, and it seems like the rungs are rotted out behind me, and they can't climb it.
Yeah, I 1,000% disagree with you.
I love that.
Yeah, it is different today, but we're still going to have 4 million buyers buy a house this year, and when the cost of money comes down, We're sitting on somewhere around, I don't know, 8 to 12 million people that want to buy a house.
I guess I
Right.
worry about who that is. Is it my mom and dad,
Sure.
or is it the college grad?
Yeah. So again, I'm just going to say to the listener, you're very lucky that you're tuned in to Zach. And I hope in no way, shape, or form that I offended you, because that would never be my intention, right? But if we're going to debate affordability, college, income, these are all things that are near and dear to my heart. And I might have an opposing view than Zach, but I think we all want the same thing. I do believe that at the end of the day, when I die, what's going to matter most is that I got a wife, had some kids, had a place that we called home, had a lot of memories. It's not the American dream. I do events all over the world. It's the same dream in Israel as it is in, Argentina, as it is in, Nova Scotia, Canada. Everybody wants the same thing. But listen, no one is going to hand you a silver spoon. You have to look yourself in the mirror and say, what am I going to do? And by the way, if it was easy, then everybody would do it, and we'd probably be in the same problem that we were in at the end of 2006, entering a global financial crisis. It should be a little more hard to buy a house. It should be. So in the meantime, are you investing in crypto? Are you investing in the stock market? Are you saving your money? Are you paying off your debts? No one is going to save you. Get off your ass. It's up to you.
Tom Ferry, everybody. Tom, thank you for coming on, brother.
I appreciate you, man.
We'll have future conversations like these if you'd like to. I'd love to dive deeper into this, because you, just so everyone's clear, though wealthy, though successful, though somebody that everyone in the real estate industry knows the name of, your family, your wife, your kids, the legacy you leave for them has nothing to do with the dollar amount. I've been able to go heart to heart with you on stuff like this. Just want to be very clear on where you stand on that. So thank you for bringing this perspective, and we're going to have more conversations like it, friend.
Appreciate you, man. Talk to you soon.
What a great conversation. There were definitely a few things I wanted to go deeper into, and we will. We're going to have Tom on again. Maybe we were talking about bringing him on for the 50th episode, the Big 5-0. Want to push more into the stats behind affordability, especially for the younger generation. We just got into that. We obviously don't agree on a couple of those takes, but that's fine, because I didn't know if this was going to be a bad episode or a good episode. Me and Tom had joked about that. Is this going to be the worst episode or the best? I think it ended up somewhere in the middle. I want to get deeper into these conversations, though, with the people that actually talk and meet with the decision makers. This guy meets with the CEOs, meets with the billionaire real estate investors. He even mentioned a couple times, like, hey, you should be going out and buying more homes. Prices are going to go up. And that's great for that sect of the market. But I want to have more conversation around the other pieces. We talked about income, college. We're on the same page there. I'm not a huge fan of the degree right now. The income problem is a huge problem, and it's leading to the affordability problem. So we're going to have more conversations around that. If you are, though, somebody, and I know there's quite a few of you out there who have gotten value now from this show. We are at episode going on 30. 20 was the mark that I wanted to hit. I was like, if we're going to do this, we got to at least get to show 20. Now we're in full force. If you haven't subscribed yet, it is free. It is an awesome way to support the show. If you want a cool shirt, we have the certified BlackRock hater shirts. But regardless, you just being here, watching, interacting, engaging, commenting, so that we can bring some of those other comments to the next conversation. Give your take. Where did you disagree? Where did you agree? What did you learn? What are you going to take action on? Would love to hear that in the comments. Spotify, YouTube, all the way around. We have a lot to get into because it's been a busy week in the news cycle, but I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Mr. Tom Ferry.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
You know all your lights flash like every 3 minutes. Like your lamp.
I think it's a